Being a woman is not easy, especially when dealing with menopause. It's not just a simple break from work or chores. When my husband Elliot made that comment, it really struck a nerve. I've been grappling with the changes in my body since I turned 50 2 years ago. Being diagnosed with menopause didn't come as a surprise, but living with its symptoms has been a daily challenge. For the past couple of years, I've been struggling with various symptoms like dizziness, palpitations, and hot flashes. Even though I'm undergoing treatment, it's not a quick fix. Despite living under the same roof, Elliot seems oblivious to the gravity of my condition. Instead of support, I've been met with skepticism and even ridicule. Elliot's lack of understanding hit a new low when he sarcastically dismissed my need for time off work as just menopause. His words stung, especially since I was battling dizziness and exhaustion at that moment. It's disheartening to see him trivialize my struggles, dismissing them as something everyone goes through as they age. But let me give you some context. I'm Anita, 52 years old, married to Elliot, who's 3 years my senior. We've been together since our late 20s, navigating life's ups and downs. Our marriage used to be peaceful, with occasional spats smoothed over with kindness. However, things changed when my health took a hit a few years back. I used to be a dedicated full-time employee, but now I'm on a leave of absence due to my health deteriorating. Menopause hit me hard in my late 40s, and it's been a roller coaster of symptoms ever since. From irregular periods to severe palpitations, it's been a tough journey. And it's not just physical. The hormonal changes have taken a toll on my mental well-being too. I've tried everything from prescribed medication to herbal remedies, but there's no magic cure for menopause. Taking a leave from work was a last resort, but even that doesn't seem to be enough to ease my symptoms. And with the possibility of retirement looming, I'm filled with uncertainty. What hurts the most is Elliot's changing attitude. At first, he seemed concerned, but as my condition persisted, his patience wore thin. His lack of empathy is glaring, especially when he questions the severity of my symptoms. It's a stark reminder of how misunderstood menopause can be, even by those closest to us. So, when Elliot scoffs at the idea of me needing time off or suggests I'm just slacking off, it cuts deep. Menopause is not a vacation. It's a battle I fight every day. And I wish Elliot could see that instead of adding insult to injury, it's not just women who experience menopause. Men go through it too. However, my husband Elliot, who deals with a chronic illness, rarely falls ill. He's always been diligent about taking care of his health to prevent his condition from worsening. Perhaps this is why he perceives my ongoing health issues as laziness. No matter how much I try to explain my symptoms, he seems far from understanding. Working in my current condition has become increasingly challenging. When I suggested taking a leave of absence until my health stabilizes, Elliot was furious, as expected. But when I mentioned that not only my boss, but also my colleagues and juniors had encouraged me to take a break, he reluctantly agreed, though still displeased. I thought I could manage more housework while not working, but there were times when sudden illness would strike, leaving me unable to move. Despite my struggles, Elliot remained unsympathetic. His attitude became increasingly cold, and he started questioning my dependency on him, suggesting I should be able to finish all the housework during the day if I'm at home. His complaints and sarcasm only added to my distress, leaving me to wonder if my symptoms would ever improve. Thankfully, my mother-in-law Cassie and sister-in-law Natalie understood my condition and offered helpful advice. Cassie, who is over 80 but still lively, has been particularly supportive. With their encouragement, I've been able to navigate this difficult time a bit better. However, Elliot's family traditions, like hosting a big dinner party for birthdays, added to my stress. Last year, I missed Cassie's birthday party due to illness, which led to harsh criticism from Elliot. Determined not to repeat that experience, I vowed to be in good shape for this year's celebration. Preparing for the dinner party became a daunting task, especially considering Elliot's high standards for cleanliness. Despite my physical limitations, I meticulously cleaned the house over several days, while Elliot offered little help, choosing instead to relax in the living room. As Cassie's 85th birthday approached, I was determined to show my appreciation for her support by pouring my heart into preparing dinner. With the help of Natalie and some careful planning, I hope to make it a memorable occasion for everyone, despite the challenges I faced. It seems that in Elliot's generation, traditional gender roles regarding household chores still prevail. While younger generations may share these responsibilities more equally, Elliot holds onto the belief that housework is primarily a wife's duty. This mindset, coupled with his perception that I'm lazing around at home all day, leaves me to manage the household tasks alone. After completing the shopping for the dinner party the day before, I went to bed early, hoping my symptoms were just mild. Unfortunately, on the day of the dinner party, my hopes were shattered as I woke up with a terrible headache and dizziness. Despite my condition, I managed to get out of bed, only to be met with Elliot's disapproving sighs when he realized I couldn't prepare breakfast. Elliot's cold demeanor didn't soften even as he left for his mother's place early, making it clear that my illness made him uncomfortable. Left alone, I tried to alleviate my symptoms with medication and rest, but my health hardly improved by the afternoon when I needed to start preparing dinner. As I struggled in the kitchen, attempting to make progress despite my body's limitations, I reached out to Elliot for help, but received no response. When he finally returned home with Cassie and the others, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Elliot's immediate anger and disappointment only added to my distress. Feeling overwhelmed, I apologized and admitted my inability to prepare a proper meal. Elliot's reaction, however, was far from understanding. Instead, he unleashed a torrent of criticism, accusing me of faking illness and being incompetent at managing both my health and household duties. His hurtful words pierced through me, exacerbating my symptoms and leaving me feeling helpless. Despite my best efforts to explain, Elliot's anger only escalated, culminating in a threat of divorce. The weight of his ultimatum hung heavy in the air, leaving me stunned and shaken. In that moment, as our eyes locked in silent confrontation, I realized the depth of our misunderstanding and the gravity of our situation. The chasm between us seemed insurmountable, fueled by years of unspoken frustrations and unmet expectations. And as Elliot's anger reverberated in the room, I couldn't help but wonder if our marriage could weather this storm or if it was destined to crumble under the weight of our differences. All my desperate pleas seemed to fall on deaf ears as Elliot, in a fit of rage, brought up divorce without a second thought. The weight of his words crushed me, and I felt utterly miserable, on the brink of tears. Divorce suddenly felt like an inevitable outcome, and I was almost ready to agree when I heard the sound of approaching footsteps. In the midst of Elliot's tirade, Natalie, my sister-in-law, entered the scene. Her expression was one of anger, unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and delivered a forceful slap to Elliot's cheek, stunning us all. Elliot, bewildered by the unexpected blow, looked up at Natalie with disbelief as she confronted him about his behavior. Natalie's words cut through the tension like a knife. She questioned Elliot's treatment of me over the years, condemning his dismissive attitude towards my illness and verbal abuse. Her fierce defense of me brought tears to my eyes, and I realized that I had underestimated her support. In that moment, I couldn't help but contrast Elliot's behavior with Natalie's compassion. Despite being family, she had never witnessed his harsh treatment of me before. I had kept silent about Elliot's actions, fearing backlash, but Natalie's intervention made me reconsider. As Natalie continued to confront Elliot, Cassie, my mother-in-law, joined the fray, firmly rebuking Elliot's accusations against me. Her words resonated with a sense of fairness and justice, challenging Elliot's perspective and holding him accountable for his actions. Elliot, stunned into silence by Natalie and Cassie's words, struggled to find a response. Natalie, seizing the opportunity, shared her own experience of battling severe menopause symptoms, shedding light on the reality of my condition. Elliot, confronted with this new perspective, stood frozen, unable to refute Natalie's testimony. In that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, with Natalie and Cassie's support, I wouldn't have to face Elliot's cruelty alone. Their unwavering defense gave me the courage to speak up, to demand the respect and understanding that I deserved. And as Elliot stood there, speechless and humbled, I realized that change was possible, even in the face of adversity. Elliot stood frozen in shock as Natalie's words sank in. When I first began experiencing symptoms of menopause, I confided in Natalie, seeking understanding and guidance. To my surprise, Natalie shared that she had faced similar struggles at around the same age. She had endured severe menopausal symptoms that eventually forced her to resign from her job after a period of leave. Her decision was not easy, but with no signs of improvement, she prioritized her health, consulting with her family before taking such a significant step. I had known Natalie had left her job around the age of 50, but the reasons behind it had remained a mystery until she revealed them to me. Our communication during that time was limited to text messages, as her poor health prevented her from meeting in person. It was a challenging period for her, and I admired her resilience in the face of adversity. Through it all, Stanley, Natalie's husband, had been a pillar of support. Though we didn't meet often, I remembered Stanley as a kind and caring man who always showed concern for my well-being. During our conversation, Natalie passionately pleaded with Elliot to show more compassion towards me. She reminded him that I wasn't his servant, but his partner, deserving of understanding and support. Elliot, feeling the weight of Natalie's words, reluctantly apologized to me, expressing a sincere desire to mend our relationship. In that moment, I allowed myself to hope that perhaps Elliot had finally grasped the depth of my struggles, and I was on the verge of forgiving him. However, just as I began to entertain thoughts of reconciliation, Cassie, looking weary from standing, interjected with a surprising declaration. She urged me to divorce Elliot without delay, shocking me with her abruptness. Confused and taken aback, I questioned her reasoning, prompting her to share a painful revelation from her own past. Cassie revealed that she had faced similar challenges when she was around my age, long before the term menopausal disorder was widely recognized. In those days, there were no medications or widespread understanding of such conditions, leaving women like Cassie to suffer in silence. She recounted instances of Elliot's callous behavior towards her during that difficult period, painting a picture of a man who lacked empathy and compassion. As Cassie spoke, her words resonated with a sense of shared pain and solidarity. Her recounting of past hurts served as a stark reminder of the toxic patterns in Elliot's behavior, casting doubt on his ability to change. In that moment, I realized that forgiveness might not be enough to heal the wounds inflicted by years of neglect and cruelty. And as Cassie's words hung in the air, I couldn't help but wonder if it was time to confront the harsh reality of my marriage head-on. As I looked to Elliot, hoping against hope for a denial or explanation, his silence spoke volumes. The truth of Cassie's words hung heavy in the air, confirming my worst fears. Cassie, her voice tinged with sorrow, continued to peel back the layers of Elliot's past behavior, revealing a pattern of mistreatment that spanned decades. She recounted a time when her late husband, driven to anger by Elliot's actions, had confronted him. Elliot's response, then as now, was one of deflection and excuses. But as Natalie firmly pointed out, apologies and promises to change meant little when followed by the repetition of the same hurtful behavior. Natalie, resolute in her stance, refused to accept Elliot's attempts to justify his actions. She reminded him of past transgressions and the impact they had on those around him, challenging him to confront the reality of his behavior. In the face of Natalie's unwavering condemnation and Cassie's urging, Elliot's facade began to crumble. His frustration and discomfort were palpable as he struggled to defend himself against their accusations. But as the weight of their words bore down on him, he finally relented, agreeing to the divorce. With Elliot's begrudging acceptance, the decision was made. The dinner party was canceled, and Cassie and the others departed, leaving Elliot and me to face the reality of our fractured relationship. In the days that followed, our divorce proceedings unfolded swiftly and smoothly, devoid of the acrimony that often accompanies such legal matters. As I reflected on the events that had unfolded, a mixture of emotions swirled within me. The thought of divorcing Elliot, after so many years together, was daunting. But the revelation of his long-standing mistreatment, coupled with the realization that change was unlikely, solidified my resolve. With Elliot's departure, a weight was lifted from my shoulders, and a sense of liberation washed over me. Though the road ahead would be uncertain, I knew that I had made the right decision for myself. And as I embraced the future, free from the confines of a toxic relationship, I felt a glimmer of hope for what lay ahead, and Natalie's accounts that Elliot's apologies were often fleeting, followed by a return to his old patterns of behavior. Despite his pleas, I remained firm in my decision. I couldn't risk my own well-being by re-entering a situation that had caused me so much pain and suffering. As I stood in our former home, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of detachment. The photographs Elliot had mentioned lay before me, a testament to happier times that now felt like distant memories. Yet, even as I sifted through the images, I couldn't bring myself to feel nostalgic. The pain of our fractured relationship overshadowed any sentimentality I might have once felt. In that moment, I realized that I needed to let go of the past and focus on building a future free from the toxicity of my marriage to Elliot. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to prioritize my own health and happiness above all else. With a heavy heart, I returned the albums to Elliot, declining his offer to keep them. As I left our former home behind, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was ready to move forward, leaving behind the pain and regret of the past and embracing the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. In the weeks and months that followed, I focused on my own recovery, seeking solace in the support of friends and loved ones who had stood by me through it all. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew that I was stronger for having faced my demons head-on. And as I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment, I realized that sometimes the hardest decisions are also the most necessary. By choosing to prioritize my own well-being, I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life and forging a path to a brighter future. Despite Elliot's heartfelt apology, I couldn't shake the feeling that it might be just another act, a performance to make me seem heartless for not forgiving him. Cassie's words echoed in my mind, reminding me of Elliot's manipulative tendencies. I gently declined his pleas for reconciliation, overwhelmed with my own issues and not in a state to care for someone else. Living with Elliot again and taking on the role of caregiver would only exacerbate my menopausal symptoms due to stress. I had finally started to stabilize, and I was not willing to risk going back to square one. Instead, I suggested alternative options for his care, such as home care services or hiring a helper. I made it clear that I could not fulfill that role and had no intention of reuniting with him. With that, I returned to my own life. In the time since then, my symptoms have settled, and I have returned to work after a hiatus. Although retirement crossed my mind, I needed to support myself. My job has always brought me fulfillment, and returning to it felt like a step in the right direction. As for Elliot, I have no intentions of reconciling or considering remarriage at this time. However, I still maintain a connection with his family, occasionally meeting them for meals. The regular family dinners, a long-standing tradition, came to an end after the incident with Elliot. I've heard that Elliot has quit his job, claiming it was to focus on treatment. However, his hospital visits haven't increased, nor has his diet improved. It seems he is living off his early retirement funds for now, yet he appears to be gripped by fear of an uncertain future due to his illness. As for me, I am determined to prioritize my health and live a fulfilling life for the remainder of my days.